Africa. Lancaster University Ghana is right here in Accra and offers an amazing student experience in a world class learning environment. Join the Lancaster University Ghana Foundation program directly after WASI and progress to an undergraduate program in law, accounting and finance, computer science, marketing, politics, international relations, economics, and international relations, or business management at the new Transnational Academic Group campus at Tantra Hill in October. If you are a working professional with a first degree, join the globally accredited Lancaster Executive MBA. Apply now, call 0552 796091 or visit lancaster.edu.gh for more information. And the Ghana Revenue Authority wishes to remind all withholding tax agents, including VAT withholding tax agents appointed by the Commissioner General, that withholding taxes must be paid to the Domestic Tax Revenue Division of the GRA by the 15th of every month. Withholding taxes for July 2021 will be due by August 15, 2021. Withholding taxes, including withholding on VAT deducted from suppliers operating the VAT standard rate scheme, 12.5%, employment payment for the supply or use of goods, payment for the supply of any works, and payment for the supply of services, and all other withheld taxes for July 2021 are due by 15th August 2021. Taxpayers are to submit hard and soft copies of schedules indicating a gross amount, the tax deducted, and names of taxpayer from whom the taxes were withheld. Taxpayers are also to note that in line with GRA cashless policy, both check and cash payments should be made at 22 designated banks, the Ghana.gov platform, or via USSD shortcode *222#. Please note that failure to pay tax by due date attracts an interest of 125% of the statutory rate, compounded monthly on the outstanding tax. Please also note that third-party checks require 2 days to clear, and GRA can be reached by email on info@gra.gov.gh, by WhatsApp on 0552 990 and 0553 280 229. Note, as 15th August falls on a weekend, payments of withholding taxes must be received by Friday the 13th of August 2021, and this is signed by the Commissioner General. And Kingdom Books and Stationery Limited, your number one supplier of quality office essentials, equipment, and furniture at affordable prices, has introduced an online store for your shopping convenience. This means you can now shop by simply logging on to kingdomstoreonline.com without physically coming to any of our branches. It is hassle-free, and we will arrange delivery to your homes and offices within a reasonable time. We offer free delivery within Accra and Tema and accept payment via Momo across all networks. Terms and conditions apply. At Kingdom, quality and affordability is our hallmark. Right, so let me start off with you, Theo Achampon, and I've been reading the piece that you wrote. So from the piece, your concerns are with the valuation and due diligence. Tell us about them.
Good morning once again. Just before I go to the concerns, I think it's also important for maybe your listeners to understand the history of where we're coming from.
Sure.
In terms of these two particular transactions, that we had in the past gone to amend our petroleum laws, amend legislation just to accommodate these two particular companies. And even at some point, we had an option when Hess was leaving the Pecan block to acquire an extra 10% equity stake for only $47 million. We didn't do any of those things. Went further to change petroleum terms, first time ever in the history of the country to accommodate this company. And then just 2 years down the line, they're saying, well, they want to back out. And so the asset has to be transferred to another entity, in this case, GNPC and its commercial ex-local wanting to buy into it. So just to set two things clear, the argument here is not about energy transition. It is not about stranded assets. We're dealing with a specific issue on the table, which is how much should we be paying for those two assets, even if we assume that Ghana has the money or GNPC has the money to want to buy those two. And that is where, in my piece, I raised some issues about how we're going about valuing those two assets. Because again, in the public narrative, it's being made to look as though it is one transaction. But in reality, there are two separate, distinct assets here. One which we can argue has some commerciality around it. That's why we're talking the deepwater tunnel, the Pecan development. But the second one, the Youngcom discovery on the South Deepwater Tunnel, has significant uncertainty and risks. And it just then begs the question, if Aker or AGM, which is the operator of this block, a sister company of Aker Energy Ghana, if only 2 years ago they wanted to have 80% of equity in that field and went as far as changing petroleum terms to accommodate them, then what has changed only 2 years down the line for them to now want to offload this 70% of an asset that, in my view, has serious risk around its potential commerciality. The water depth we're talking about is 3,200 or so meters. The deepest well that has been drilled is around 2,900 meters, and there's no technology as yet that we can use to extract those. So, and then you can come to Pecan and the issues around the oil price and how much we should be paying for those assets. But significantly, the point is that, in my view, there's overpricing of the assets. The assumptions that went into the valuation need to be questioned, and we shouldn't be paying for the amounts that are being quoted. I recognize that Parliament gave or has given GNPC a ceiling of what, up to 1.1 billion. But that for me is just like giving, away value, because fundamentally, we don't even know who certified the reserves and the contingent resources in those, two fields, which then goes into the valuation exercise. The oil price that is being used, $65, $67 a barrel, there's a big question mark around that. In my view, I think we should valuing this between $50 and $55 a barrel, which again brings down the value of those two assets substantially lower than what is being currently, we're being told in the media landscape. So those are in broad terms, the concerns that I raised, but we can go into some of the
Yes, we would go into them shortly, and I'll get back to you, but let me just ask this. So in your view, based on, you talk about if you value, if you use the $50 to $55 per barrel, that would reduce that significantly. In your view, how much should we be paying for this?
So I've been running some numbers myself. I've spoken to at least 12 people who work in the industry in Ghana, outside. Historically, I sat on the other side of the table working for an oil and gas company that did a lot of these valuations. And currently, I do consultancy supporting a number of these valuations. I don't think that the two assets are worth more than $500 million. If you run a number of the scenarios and the numbers based on the production projections and oil prices, you're not looking in anything more than half a billion in terms of the value. And that's where I think we have to go back really to question a number of the assumptions that are really going into these numbers that are being bandied about. As far as I know, nobody has certified the results, the reserves. Nobody has certified the contingent resources on the South Deepwater Tunnel block. So that's the Youngcom discovery. As far as I know, the commerciality of Youngcom has a big question mark around that. And
what
all
is the
of these things, when you take that into account, the value should be much lower.
Okay, I'll get back to you. On this. Let me say we've been joined by Andrew Ejapamesa, Deputy Minister of Energy. Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I'll get to you shortly. But let me get to you also. Ben Boache. Ben, you've heard the concerns by Theo Champon. Similar concerns, or you have other concerns?
I mean, essentially similar concerns, but to also dwell on the fact that, we are not talking about the broad policy of GNPC's participation in the industry or becoming an operator. We're not talking about the broad sense of government, facilitating acquisitions in the sector. We are talking about specific proposed transactions that we have questions with. And I think when we are dealing with a subject, we have to stay in that lane and not confuse the issues with the emotions about the world is moving away from energy transition. We need to get our own national oil company that really takes us away from the specific questions around the transaction and how much we are willing to pay for that transaction. And like Theo said, I mean, if you're going to buy an asset, establishing how much that asset is worth is fundamental. And that guides how much you are willing to offer or pay for the asset. In the oil and gas industry, a crucial part of establishing how much to pay is understanding how much oil can be recovered. All right, you may discover oil. You have to do appraisal to establish how much oil is in place. And even when you're going into this kind of transaction and you are not the operator of the block, you have been declared, some information has been declared to you. You need to certify those information. So when we had the opportunity to meet the so-called independent consultants, we put the specific questions to them. And it became a battle for their own integrity, where they said, well, those numbers were just given to us and we had to plug it into the data to generate the results that we do have. We asked a specific question: have they ever done valuation on a discovery that hasn't been appraised? So, yeah, we're given the data, we have to plug it in. So it tells you that a lot of work hasn't been done, to warrant the kind of assessment that was done to establish the true volumes on the ground from GNPC's perspective and from an independent, a truly independent assessment that could really get us to where we are. And again, there is a history to this block that GNPC should pay attention to. And that is essentially what we've been trying to get
which
government
block are you talking about? Which block is there history to?
The South Deepwater Tunnel block, which is being bundled on with the discovery that has been sort of proven by Hess before they sold. When you have a transaction, where two separate entities come together to bundle their asset and sell, you have to dig deeper and raise questions. We struggle to find, how we can even apportion the $1.3 billion to those two blocks, because you have one that is only one discovery and one dry well, okay? And then you have one that has gone through appraisal and could go into production or development. So the question is, how much is the value of the one that has only one discovery that hasn't been appraised? We haven't really established the certainty of the reserves on the ground, and one that has done some work to establish the certainty of the reserves. And in such transactions, you would really find that these guys want to be smart to bundle it so that they can push non-performing assets into performing assets. So during the presentation by the consultant, then it became obvious that the one discovery, the Nyankom discovery, has been valued at $700 million. And that immediately raises fundamental questions. How they came by that value for a discovery that hasn't been appraised. And the question also is, why is Aker failing to appraise that reserve? And GNPC says, well, you have not appraised it, but we want to buy it, at that value, and believe that what the independent valuer is actually telling them is the core, of that block. And then also tracking back on the history on that specific block. This is a block that was essentially owned by GNPC after they paid the $29 million to the same Aker way back in 2009, all right, to own the data, that Aker generated at the time. The same data was handed to Aker when they acquired AGM, exploration company. And they came to Ghana government and said, if we were to explore on those blocks, we need to kick GNPC out so that we can invest, all right? And we agreed to give our stake to Aker at Peppercorn. We didn't charge them for it. So they took the investment that GNPC had made on the block for free. All right. And then go to the field and drill a well, one discovery, and then one dry well, and come back 2 years later to sell the same block to us at a quoted value of $700 million. And that for me is ridiculous, to say the least. For us to sit and get this kind of transaction through when we have missed all the opportunities really to exploit the same block that we give away for free without recovery. If Aker says they are no longer interested in the block, the reason why we gave them the concession, the reason why we scrapped our $29 million investment was to incentivize them for them to stay on the block and work. If they are no longer interested in that block, they should give us back our stake. It's as simple as that. They should give us back our stake because we're providing incentive for them to do the work that is, given to them in the PA.
All right, I'll get back
if
to
they
you.
Say they're no longer interested, they don't turn around to sell the same thing to us, the one we gave to them for free, to us because they drill one well, made one successful discovery.
Sure, I'll get back to you, Ben, short. Let me get to Dr. Steve Manteal before I get to you, Andrew Japamesa. Yes, Dr. Manteal,
yes.
What's your take on all of this?
Well, thank you very much. I think the earlier panelists began their submission by seeking to dismiss the drivers of what is really happening now. I think what is happening, I take a very ideological position on that. In 2018, when I chaired the Public Interest and Accountability Committee, I led the committee to do some analysis of the revenue flows from our oil sector. And the finding was that the bulk of our oil revenue was coming from CAPI. CAPI is carried and participating interest. That's equity holding in the blocks. That is what is giving us more reliable, assured, and in terms of volumes, in some instances, up to about 70% of our revenues from the sector. This is understandable because corporate income tax is not predictable. It is subject to the recovery of capital allowances by the companies. And so we realized, and the advice we gave government was to take steps to increase GNPC's participation in our oil sector. I should be the last person to turn around to be criticizing the attempt to do what we have recommended way back in 2018. Again, a study undertaken by the Civil Society Platform on Oil and Gas earlier this year showed that in the last 6 to 7 years or so, there has been no investment in exploration in Ghana. We have produced about half of Jubilee, which means in the next 9 to 10 years, Jubilee will be finished. We will not get anything from Jubilee. We've done about a third of 10, and I think a fourth of Sankofa Jinyame, which means if we are not careful, within the next 10 to 15 years, we'll have no oil industry, which then requires that we as a country, the resource owner, do something urgently to sustain our oil industry. Incidentally, Ghana has come under pressure to abandon its hydrocarbons in the ground in favor of renewables. The European companies that invest in our oil sector are all shifting their finance, as you said rightly in your introduction. So what happens when they all move away? In fact, the EU itself is putting a lot of pressure on even financial institutions that fund fossil fuel projects. So they've classified companies and banks under their so-called taxonomy program according to good and bad companies. Companies that invest in fossil fuel are bad companies. And so once you are classified that way, you find it difficult to raise finance for your projects. So they all go in. In fact, BP for 2021 alone has announced that it is reducing its investments in fossil fuel by 40%. So I thought that, look, if we are not careful as a country, we don't do something dramatic, we'll end up with a stranded asset, as you rightly noted. And you see, these companies that are putting pressure on us to abandon our fossil fuel in the ground, they themselves, they made huge profits from exploiting the same resource, and now they are investing those profits into renewables. Where is Ghana going to find the money to go into renewables? They want us to come back again to the EU countries to borrow, to increase our national debt? No, my position is that energy transition is not going to be an event. Look, 30 years ago, the world took a decision to transition from modular television to digital television. That was about 30, 35 years ago. And in Africa, not all the countries have made that transition, even in Ghana. So I'm saying that, look, this energy transition is going to be a prolonged transition. It's going to, but the EU itself estimated to take about 60 years. So I think what we need to do as a country is to have a national energy transition strategy which leverages opportunities we can lay hands on today in terms of continuing the extraction of our resources and using the revenue to invest in renewable energy technology, which then means that we will need to reprioritize the use of our annual budget funding amount, the ABFA, to prioritize investments into renewable energy technologies. And again, we need to also fix the GNPC governance problem. This is a time we need to take GNPC governance issues very, very seriously. So anybody who actually dismisses this background to what is happening today is only either being disingenuous or it's just ignorant.
Okay, let me get to Andre Japamesa now. So you've heard particularly from Theo Champong and Ben Boachi, the issue of cost and the viability and commerciality of one of the wells has been called into question. For Theo Champong, he says, well, you should be buying this or you should be investing in this for $500 million, and not the proposed, all things being equal, we should go by Parliament's own suggestion, 1.1 plus 350, $1.45 billion. What's your take on this?
Let me say good morning to our cherished listeners and, of course, my co-panelists. Like I indicated last Saturday, I think that for the most part, many of our friends in the CSO, whose views I respect so much, and I believe GNPC themselves and the ministries of finance and energy welcome. Because if you take out the insinuations and name calling and the needless suspicion, really there's value in questions that are posed with respect to every transaction that government is undertaking. Why I say that they are essentially engaged in, to borrow the words of Kwekubako, premature ejaculation is because no transaction has been consummated. Indeed, what the GNPC, through the Ministry of Energy, sought to do, and for which Parliament gave approval for, was essentially two substantive approvals and two consequential approvals. Why do I say so? The memo that was submitted contained 4 requests. One, if you give me a second, I'll just read the cabinet.
Sure, go ahead and read it.
Acquisition by GNPC through GNPC Exploco of the following stakes: 37% insurance, Deepwater Tunnel, Cape 3 Points, operated by Aker Energy. 70% stake in South Deepwater Tunnel, operated by AGM. That's one. Establishment of a joint operating company between Aker and AGM. Mandate the Minister for Energy and Minister of Finance to agree on a purchase price with Aker and then provide a loan, if need be, to fund the acquisition. So the substantive approvals was the mandate to the Minister of Finance and Energy to engage in a negotiation with the view to acquiring the stakes. The rest, the establishment of the joint operating company and, of course, the loan, are all consequential. In the sense that if the Ministry of Finance and Energy are unable to agree a price with Aker Energy and AGM then the acquisition will not take place. If the acquisition doesn't take place, all the rest of the approvals that are contained therein become moot. So essentially, what Parliament sought to do, based on the cabinet request, is to mandate the finance minister and the minister for energy, together with GNPC, to go and negotiate. There's no agreement.
But they've given you a ceiling.
Absolutely. Because, like every transaction, there has to be a basis for the request that you make. That basis is the valuation that has been commissioned by GNPC themselves, taking into consideration some factors that they considered, Aker AGM themselves, Aker commissioning Pareto and Arctic, and then of course Aker and GNPC commissioning Lambert. Those are all indicative. Based on those indicative figures, they came to a consensus that this figure, which was provided by the third-party independent consultant that we have engaged, can serve as basis for negotiation. So then GNPC goes to cabinet and subsequently to parliament to seek a mandate to go and negotiate based on those figures that have been provided by
Yeah, but if I mean, based on what Theo Champon says, he says he wouldn't value this at more than 500 million. If I were Aker Energy and AGM, and knowing that you have a ceiling of 1.1 billion, that'd be my starting point. I just would buy it and say, bingo, let's go.
Winston, are you aware that following the initiation of the conversation, the finance ministry is in the process of procuring an international investment firm, bank, to do a fair value assessment of the valuations that have been submitted.
Okay.
So it's not like people have gone to sleep or that somebody is doing something untoward or that somebody is seeking to shortchange Ghana. Because from the conversation as I've heard so far, we are essentially all at Edem that it's about time that GNPC is empowered. Yes, they've tried in the past. We've given them a mandate in the past to attempt to become an operator. They have failed, no doubt. And the question about improving the governance of GNPC and this transaction, as far as I'm concerned, are not mutually exclusive. You can make a call for GNPC's governance and internal systems to be strengthened, and of course still proceed to do this transaction, because the alternative is that we potentially stand to lose the value, no matter how small, that we can derive from our failure to explore these resources. It's as simple as that. We are essentially in a catch-22 situation. Regardless of all the bad deeds that GNPC is accused of having committed in the past, question is it worth the while for this country to empower its national oil company to proceed to take some risk in exploring these assets for the benefit of all of us? And so for me, if my friends from civil society just issued an advisory paper that, look, Mr. Ministers, Mr. GNPC, we see you attempting to do this transaction. Indeed, we've seen the documents that you've submitted to Parliament. I guess that they were essentially of the view that because wording to the effect that loan agreement or some loan ought to be provided, or that government is seeking some 1.65 billion, then the assumption was that some transaction had in fact been submitted to Parliament for approval, when in fact that was not the case. And had issued an advisory paper based on that to say to GNPC that, look, we've done some assessments on our own, and we think that whilst you go into this transaction, be mindful of the values that you conclude with Aker on. Nobody would raise a finger at them or accuse them of anything. But if you look at the statements that have been issued, and I read Bright Simmons from yesterday, essentially casting insinuations about the number of pages that the cabinet memo and the parliamentary memo contained. Paltry 10 pages. As if to say that going to seek a mandate necessarily require you to put out a 100-page document to Parliament before that mandate can be obtained. Questioning the 7-page report that Parliament had put out. That in itself creates bad blood right from the very beginning. Because then the suggestion is that everybody else there is doing some shoddy job. And obviously the facts do not support that assertion at all. As far as I'm concerned, and I know on authority that GNPC has asked these same civil society organizations that, but when you got the information, have you engaged us? Our doors are open. Come and raise your concerns and we'll deal with them as appropriate. We are at the very beginning of the conversation. Yes, some basis has had to be established to guide the approvals that we seek, the mandate that we then go to government to procure.
Okay.
That's exactly what we have done.
Okay.
And so, please, let's treat ourselves with mutual respect and not cast insinuations and aspersions against people who all are working to ensure that the public good is protected.
Great. Let me get to Ben quickly. And Ben Boache, you don't react to what Dr. Steve Mantia said, but another issue that has come up is based on what you say about the AGM block being a dry well, and the information is that it has 167 million barrels confirmed from a drilling campaign. And so the question is, how can that be said to be a dry well? You want to combine these two?
Confirmed from where? I mean, it is a well that was drilled. It hasn't been appraised. So if you say it's been confirmed, I don't know what kind of confirmation they are talking about. And that's the crux of the questions that we are asking. You need to do appraisal. In fact, by law, they should have done that within 100 days. All right. And we appreciate that because of quality, they probably would have sought permission not to go ahead immediately. But they have to appraise the well, and failure to do so, you relinquish it. And if you relinquish it, GNPC takes it for free because it's Ghana's oil. It's not Aker's oil. It is our resources. All right. So Aker has two decisions to be made at this point. Either they go ahead to appraise the well or leave it and go. All right. So those are the two cardinal decisions that they have to take at this point when you make a discovery. You can't pass the risk on. Perhaps why you shouldn't appraise it, and GNPC is not in that position, and therefore you just want to sell it to them. You have to do what the law says you should do when you make a discovery. If you fail to do that, you relinquish the block and you exit.
But you have admitted that COVID might have affected a lot of things.
Yes, but beyond that, they have still been delaying. You check with the commission. It's excuses after excuses, and not making the effort to go and appraise the discovery. All right, and we are not even pulling the stick where we have to, because again, you are making an argument that energy transition is beckoning. We need to push to get some resources. So companies, when not performing and not delivering on the terms of their contract, they have to be sanctioned. All right, and we are not sanctioning them. And if you ask anybody in the industry, those kind of excuses, you don't have many company getting those favors. ENI just made a discovery in May, and they have already tested the wells and know the pressure and possible production volumes from that particular well. All right. So what prevents a discovery that was made in 2019 to go through that exercise to actually give us some specific numbers on what possibly can produce from that well, even if we're to produce it today? So these are legitimate questions that we ask. And I appreciate the advocacy lessons that were given by my friend, Honorable Minister in the studio, right? But here you have an agreement that was on a jet speed, right? Going through Parliament late on Friday. Monday, a committee has been summoned to come and speak to it.
I keep reminding you that there's no agreement.
No, the transaction that was to be approved.
No transaction has been approved. I have indicated time without number that all that the Ministry of Energy sought to do was to obtain the money. Indeed, at the committee meeting, Honorable Atuforsen commented that
you
he thinks that
read,
this is
you just
merely
read
a
the
policy
memo.
decision that if the Minister of Finance had put in the mid-year review budget, would not have required them to come to Parliament to seek anything.
Okay, let me get Ben to wrap up in a minute because we need to continue. As Ben,
you just read the memo that is specific on what you were demanding. You essentially wanted a blank check to go and negotiate and get a price, right? That you wanted. You could have negotiated and brought the number, the specific number you arrive at, to Parliament and say, we have identified this prospect, and this is the number we are willing to pay for.
But that's going to happen.
That was an option.
Post the negotiation, the documents are supposed
for you
to be
to go
returned
to
to Parliament
Parliament
for
and say
approval.
that, give us a blank check.
No,
to go
that
and negotiate
is not
up
true.
to 1.65 billion. That is what is written in the memo that you sent to Parliament. And we are lucky that Parliament said, bring back every agreement and whatever number you negotiate for subsequent approval. And that's the luck we had. If they had gone ahead and said, go ahead and negotiate whatever value not exceeding 1.65 billion, that could have been a blank check for you, which you wanted.
Ben.
So yes, let me come back. To
in a minute. Yes.
Yes, the issues about, and I kept saying that we have to pay attention to this particular proposed transaction before us. We are not against GNPC taking asset, but the reality is that we are not even talking about exploration. We are talking about acquisition of an explored asset that one has to go into production and one hasn't been confirmed. Those are the issues that we are dealing with. If you are afraid that our oil is going to be stranded, then your focus really is on how do you aggressively explore the resources. GNPC is already an operator on many blocks in Ghana through their subsidiaries, GOSCO and Exploco. All right. So why are they not investing in drilling to really advance their case that we're actually running out of time? We need to put money into exploration to see if we can make discoveries and also improve our reserves.
Okay.
Your action really is not what you can buy from people who have already invested at a value that can be questioned Ben, in this manner.
Ben, a quick yes or
those
no.
are distinct conversations that we need to have.
A quick yes or no. Honorable Minister has talked about, the fact that GNPC says you've not engaged them. How about you engage them further? Are you willing to engage them? Yes
no,
or no?
We have told them that we want to engage them on those specific. We have done one with the valuers, and we were disappointed the way it all went because they didn't have a handle on the inputs that really would generate the results that should advise government. And we're also curious why two parties who are into such a transaction will get. It's not arbitration, and the consultant even said it, that it's not an arbitral tribunal. So what are they doing? GNPC should have his own advice, Aker should have his own advice, and then you have your separate numbers you go to the table with. It's negotiation, it's a banter to really arrive at an optimal price. How did they become one to sit up and say, we want one consultant to advise how much we should sell our assets for? How much we should pay for the assets? Yes, that is extremely odd in the industry.
Please hold on for me, Ben. Now we need to be wrapping up in a minute, Honorable Mesa. You've heard from Ben. What do you say finally?
Well, I guess that, what has to be done will be done. I know that the Minister of Finance and Minister of Energy are proceeding, like I indicated, to engage a fair opinion consultant to provide an assessment of what it is that GNPC has presented. Because you expect that the ministries will provide the supervisory role that is expected of them before this transaction is consummated. Okay. In any event, like I keep saying, there is no agreement. No agreement was submitted to Parliament for approval. No loan was approved by Parliament for anybody to go and undertake the acquisition of any transaction. The only thing that Parliament has done was to approve the request for these officials of state, finance, and energy to be mandated to go and negotiate for the acquisition of the stake in those two blocks. That's it.
Very much, Andre Japamasa. And guys, let me say this is an ongoing discussion, and we just got started.
Can I add a quick point?
Yes, quick one for you in a minute, because we need to.
No, that's fine. But the point really is that what the Honorable is saying, and unfortunately what Uncle Steve was a good friend saying, they're completely skirting around the issues. very substantive issues there that we need to address, including the fact that this whole idea of GNPC being operator now doesn't really make much sense, because even under this proposed transaction or deal, what it ends up becoming is Aker would still be the technical operator of the field in this joint operating arrangement.
But they can only become an operator when they piggy bank on the experience of the likes of Aker.
Yeah, but we've had
that's
other
not the only
it's a matter of time.
It's not the only channel.
Clearly, you've got issues.
It's not the only
Secondly,
channel. I mean,
where
you are
is
an
the
operator of a
technical
bomb.
advice or the position of the Petroleum Commission and other agencies in all of these conversations? It's just been whittled down to GNPC, Ministry of Energy, and Aker. But there are other institutional agents here who have offered or would possibly have offered technical advice. So where's all of that?
But Petroleum Commission is a technical advisor to the Ministry of Energy as well.
Thank you very much, guys. Look, like I started by saying, it's an ongoing discussion, and we've just started here on your most influential breakfast show, the Super Morning Show. We will continue this conversation. We'll continue with it. So we need to take a short break and come back with a discussion with our friends from Lancaster University. We will continue, and the guys will be back to join us maybe tomorrow to a broader conversation on it. Thank you very much, Andre Japamasa. Thank you, Theo Champon. Thank you, Ben Bach, and thank you, Dr. Steve Mantia.
Thank you.
Stay with us when we return. Our friends from Lancaster University will be joining us.
Wow, wow, wow. Hope you have heard, rent to own now in Ghana. The Flan City Extension Project Rent to Own Land and House Ownership Scheme by the Ningo Prampram District Assembly and its partners, supported by the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development and the UN Habitat, are right here in Ghana. So be smart, because where you trade and live really matters. Apply now and own a home or a fully serviced land. Wait a minute, don't forget to join our affiliate housing cooperatives also. Special offers last up to October 31st, 2021. Call us on 055 55 3300 or 0577 911101 and 055 7054 635. Website newaccra.city. Plant City Extension Project, shaping Ghana's urban future.
Postponed a year because of the coronavirus pandemic. The world's best athlete will once again compete, and the world's best home of electronics and appliances, Electroland, have everything for families and everyone.
Electroland Olympics promotion. Okay, just follow me. You can grab anything from Samsung, NASCO, Toshiba, and media for your family and loved ones. What a great discount. NASCO LED flat TV starts at 999 Ghana cedis. Samsung LED TV, 1,499 cedis. Refresh your family with a Samsung split AC. Everyone will love it at home if you change that old refrigerator. Buy your washing machine, microwave, water dispenser at the best discount rate. We call it Electroland Olympics promotion.
What would you do if you have the choice to do anything in life? Build your dream house, take very good care of your family, and plan for a comfortable retirement. Plan a befitting funeral for your loved ones when they depart. How would you live if you knew there was a friend waiting to support you on all of your life's choices?
You have such a friend in Glyco Life Insurance. Glyco Life has all the plans to meet your life's needs. Your child's education, your life savings, your mortgage, funerals, redundancy, and your retirement, and takes the burden off your shoulders. So go ahead and live life to the fullest today with Glyco Life Insurance Plan.